Hello beautiful people. Welcome to the second video covering the SPAAGs in War Thunder for the lower ranks. This is the second video for rank 1 and I'll take a look at the vehicles from Germany, Japan, Italy and Sweden. So let's get started. This is the Flakpanzer I or Flakpanzer 1, country Germany, crew 2, gunner and driver, armament 1 20mm autocannon, armor 13mm, speed 31 km per hour on the road or 19 miles per hour. So I'm starting off with the Flakpanzer I or Flakpanzer 1 because it's probably the best of the 20mm from a rank 1. So I'll use this one as a baseline. Now if you talk about the mobility, it's not very fast. It's actually one of the slowest ones overall, if not the slowest. You can maximum get up to 31 kilometers per hour or 18 miles per hour, and that's not very fast. So don't use it as a flanker or anything like that. Keep at the rear with the gear, or keep close to your buddies. Don't wander off alone, or rather you can wander off alone, but you need map knowledge to do so. Because just like everything else in rank 1, it has no armor. 13mm is hull armor, and the hull is actually the thickest armor on this vehicle. So higher caliber weapons will go straight through you. You might survive some heavy machine guns and some light machine guns, but that's about it. And it only has 2 crew members, which means that if the gunner, who's very exposed, is taken out, then it's all over. So that's something to keep in mind. He has a tiny gun shield, but it's only like 7mm, so even light machine guns will go straight through it. Now the gun of this thing, the Flak 38, is pretty amazing. You get 320 rounds of ammo with it. The rate of fire is 480 rounds per minute, which is pretty quick, but it only has 8 cannon shells in each magazine before you need to reload, and the reload is about 3 or 4 seconds depending on your crew skill level. You get 4 different types of ammo you can use. There's the fourth one. The first one is a mix between high explosive and armor piercing. And then you get a pure high explosive, a pure armor piercing, and then you get a mix between armor piercing and HVAP, and the last one is the most effective one. Now the high explosive one can penetrate up to 2mm of armor, which means that you do not engage enemy tanks with it. You only use it against enemy planes or maybe another lightly or unarmed SPAA, since you only get 2mm of penetration. But then again, a single hit from a 20mm can rip off a wing of a biplane. The armor penetrating round is called PZGR, which means Panzergranate or Panzer grenade, I guess. And that thing can penetrate up to 35mm of armor up until 500 meters, then it drops off to 25mm. So in general, don't engage enemy tanks further out than 500 meters because you can seriously drop off in effectiveness. The last build you get is called PZGR40, Panzergranate 40, and that's a mix between HVAP, high velocity armor piercing, and the normal armor piercing. Now the HVAP shell itself can penetrate up to 60mm of armor until 500 meters, then it drops off to 25mm. And that's actually a big difference. So you're getting, with the HVAP, you're getting twice the penetration of the normal API at the same range. But again, it's not a pure build full of HVAP, so that's something to keep in mind. Another thing I would mention is because of the low ammo count in each magazine in this particular vehicle. Every time you engage somebody and you end up with 1 or 2 rounds left in the magazine, just burn them off so you can reload a new full magazine so you're ready again for a plane or another tank, because it's extremely annoying and it can definitely kill you if you forget about that small fact, which I often do, that you start a new engagement and you shoot 1 or 2 rounds and then you're sitting there for 3 or 4 seconds because you need to reload again, and that will kill you. If you want to switch ammo types, what you do is you pick another type, then you fire a single round, and that will reload your weapon with the new ammo type. The turret traverse on all 20mm cannons here is by definition slower than the light machine gun and heavy machine gun counterparts, because they are all hand cranked, and of course they are way heavier weapon systems. So what offsets that a little is that you can engage targets further out than the light machine gun and heavy machine gun variants. But whenever a plane gets very close, you have a tendency to not be able to keep up with the movement, and that can cause a bit of frustration. It's just something you need to work around. Here we have Izusu Type 94, Country, Japan, Crew 3, Gunner, Driver and Commander/Loader. Armament 1 20mm autocannon. Armor 0, it's just a milk truck. Speed 60 km an hour on the road, and that equals to about 37 miles per hour. So this Japanese Type 94 is just like the Russian counterparts on rank 1. It's just a truck. So 0 armor. Speed is about 60 kilometers per hour, so it's pretty decent. But the thing is with these kind of vehicles is that this speed drops off very fast when you're talking about deep sand or deep snow. And going uphill can also really be a chore. And you have issues with tractions on slopes, and sometimes you can even have issues with maintaining the position. So definitely keep on level ground if possible to not to get too frustrated with this type. And realize there's just certain positions that you cannot get to with this vehicle compared to a tracked one. The gun can fire 300 rounds per minute, and you get 12 rounds in each magazine. So compared to the German, you shoot slower, but you have about 30% more ammo in each magazine. It's of course a matter of balancing, where you get more ammo, but your rate of fire is slower. So the German rate of fire is more appealing to me anyhow. You have a shorter window of killing something, but the fire you put out there in that short amount of time is more dense than the Japanese one, for instance. You get two different types of ammo with this 20mm. You get an high explosive one which penetrates 2mm, so only use that one against airplanes. And then you have an API which penetrates about 45mm at 500 meters, and then it drops off to 30mm. So it's slightly better than the regular German API, but it's not as effective as the German HVAP. Basically a middle ground between the two. If you look at how the gun is positioned on the flatbed, if the gun points over the driver's cabin, there's some issues which you can clearly see that you cannot get a horizontal point of aim, or aiming with it horizontally with it when it's over the cabin. And again, you need to position the vehicle so you can get full uses of the gun. So if possible, what I suggest, what I do myself, is I'm actually backing up to a position I want to keep for a while. Downside is of course that your gunner and your loader will be visible right away, but positive thing is that you have full traverse of the gun that way. You don't have to worry about driver's cabin being in the way of the gun, and in case of you need to get the hell out of there, which you often do, you can just move forward, and it's way faster than reversing out of a situation. So the gun is very effective, but you have very, very low survivability. So definitely use this one in ambush, or keep behind teammates, or just find a good spot and then use it as an anti-aircraft vehicle, which is pretty effective. Next we have AS-42, Tipo 2, Country, Italy, Crew 2, Gunner and Driver. Armament 120mm autocannon. Armor 0. Speed 84 km per hour on the road, equals to about 52 miles per hour. Now I wanted to start off by mentioning that this vehicle has some of the same issues, although not nearly as bad as the Russian gas with a Dishka. It cannot traverse 360 degrees. It's more like 300 degrees, I guess. So if you want to engage something that is directly behind you, you again need to move the vehicle around, since you cannot shoot over the engine deck. So this Italian AS-42 is the fastest of them all. It can reach a speed up to 84 kilometers per hour on the road. And although it's tracked, it's actually pretty decent on slopes and uphill. It's almost as good as a track vehicle, and it has much better traction in snow and deep sand compared to the truck variant. So if you're trigger happy, then this Italian is definitely for you. This thing has 1200 rounds of 20mm ammunition, which is completely insane. And you can have 4 different kinds of belts. The default one starts off with 1 API, then followed by 3 HE. And the second belt is pure high explosive HE. Third belt is pure API, and the API has a penetration up to 40 millimeters out to 500 meters, and then it drops off to 30 millimeters. So again, just stick with targets within 500 meters when you're shooting at vehicles, which you probably would anyhow. And of course the last build is the best one. It's the same one as the German one with the Panzergranate 40, which has access to HWAP. So it's 1 HWAP with a penetration up to 60 millimeters up to 500 meters, dropping off to 30 millimeters, and then API. So it's HWAP, API, HWAP, API. And that's a pretty incredible build to have. Because you have so much ammunition with you, you can easily split them up, so 50-50, so 50% high explosive and 50% AP, or you can do 60-40, whatever you want. If you would split up your ammo 50-50, you would still have twice the amount of ammunition in each category than you would with the German counterpart. In case you just have gotten this vehicle just started on Talon 3, I would suggest that you wait with engaging tanks until you get the pure API build. It's going to be only 2 or 3 games if you get a kill or 2 airplane kills, because you won't be able to do any harm to anything with a default build and the following high explosive build. So just wait a couple of matches and you're good to go. This gun is one of the very few that can elevate up to 90 degrees, so you can pretty much shoot straight up. And that's a pretty big advantage to have. You've seen previously some that can only elevate up to 45 degrees, and like the French one and the next one, the last one we're going to talk about, the Swedish one suffers from that affliction too. Now the AS-42's incredible speed makes new gaming options available for you. You can either rush ahead and capture a point quickly, and if it's a map with only 1 capture point, even better. It's going to be a huge advantage for the team starting out with that. Or you can choose to flank and then quickly get into a very nice sniping position if you have good map knowledge, and then hit them from the side whenever they approach the capture points. And of course, a little addendum: if you choose to go for a cap, as soon as you've capped it and you see that red artillery warning tick across the screen, you need to get the hell out of there, because you cannot survive anything, not even a near miss. Everything will pretty much just kill you. Since I'm just full of good ideas right now, I wanted to just quickly build out my mantra. So please do not fire unless you are certain to some degree that you're actually going to hit the damn thing. Again, if you start shooting at a increased range where you know that you have no idea if you're going to hit or not, just please don't. So two things will happen. The plane you are shooting at will see you from far away and pretty much pinpoint you and know who to attack, and you will alert all baddies close by to your presence. And if you're in a group of friendlies, well, then they're gonna be exposed to. So just please don't.
Captured, we have the advantage.
So last on the list we have the Swedish PVLVV FM 42 or Panzervärnslavett-Wagen. I actually think that was pretty close. Country Sweden, crew 2, gunner and driver, armament 1 20mm autocannon, armor 8mm, speed 50 km per hour on the road, equals to about 31 miles per hour. Now this gun has three major drawbacks which prevents it from being a good anti-aircraft asset. Firstly, it can only elevate 45 degrees, and that puts you in a really bad spot when you want to engage an enemy aircraft. This means that you often have to either wait until the planes are at an angle where you can attack them, or you have to start moving the vehicle around in hopes that you can find some kind of elevation with the surrounding terrain. And on flat maps like the factory, you are really not a very usable pure anti-aircraft vehicle. The second major drawback is the lack of overall ammunition. You only have 108 rounds total. That's about 12 times less than the Italian vehicle. So you have 3 barrels with 36 rounds each. They can, however, be shot off in one continuous burst, but that's pretty much the only little redeeming advantage you have here. Now the last drawback of the gun is the lack of traverse. I mean, it can travel 360 degrees, but it's only 90 degrees a second. That means that you're going to have trouble tracking faster aircraft unless they either fly straight towards you or straight away from you, or some kind of angles close to either. And the gun traverse that slow is something you see with the anti-aircraft vehicles that has either 37mm or 40mm anti-aircraft guns mid-tier. But we are talking about tier 1 here, and we should really not see that. And we all know how many rounds it can take to kill an enemy plane if you have to sight in your shots first. So there's two ways of looking at this. You can either use 36 rounds in long bursts to try to take down a plane, or you just wasted a lot of ammo. So realistically, I would suggest that you either take pure API or pure high explosive barrels. Don't mix them. You won't have enough of either ammo to make a difference otherwise. So before you spawn in, you need to decide how you want to play. If you want to play as a tank destroyer, use pure API, or if you want to play as an anti-aircraft vehicle, use pure HE. I would suggest though that you just take the API and forget about the high explosive, because this way you can definitely kill tanks and you have the option of killing airplanes. If you do pure HE, you won't have any options to kill any vehicles at all. Okay, now with all this negativity out of the way, let's talk about some of the positive aspects. So the speed is 50 kilometers an hour, and it pretty much puts the Swedish vehicle in the middle of the pack speed-wise. Of course, we have little to no armor, so pretty much everything will penetrate you and kill you very easily. Okay, that's another negative. So I was not completely done. The turret has a tiny shield with a bit more armor with 13mm, and you can get lucky and bounce some light machine gun rounds on it, but that's about it. You only have 2 group members, so if either the gunner or the driver is killed, you are out of the match. Now the gun itself is the Swedish Bofors B40B 20mm autocannon, and you have access to 2 kinds of ammunition, HE and API. The HE has a standard penetration of 2mm, so only use that against aircraft, and if you're extremely lucky, another light vehicle. The AP shell can penetrate 40mm up to 500 meters, and then it drops off to 30mm. So this also puts you in the middle of the pack penetration wise, but clearly not as good as either German or Italian gun with the HVAP. So in a way, the best kind of anti-aircraft vehicle is a vehicle that can both kill tanks and kill airplanes effectively. This one cannot kill aircraft effectively, which is its primary role, so it fails big time there. It's just perfectly okay as a tank destroyer, but yeah, this is definitely the worst of the bunch. So this was the last vehicle of the Tier 1 SPAAGs. I hope you liked it and learned something. I know I did. So do me a favor and give it a like, put down a comment, or you can also go overboard and even subscribe to my channel. If you missed the first video of this series, you can look it up on my channel. That one covers the light machine gun versions and the heavy machine gun versions of the SPAAGs at rank 1. Have a good one, and until next time.